Beyond logic and human comprehension exists a realm of limitless possibility, a world of strange and horrifying creatures, courageous adventurers, and sinister supervillains. It is here that a group of heroes will emerge, each with his own set of special powers capable of defending humanity. Together they will fight to withhold the forces of evil from our planet and maintain justice, here in the Nerdosphere. Man, shut the up. This is only a podcast. Brought to you by FandomBest.com. It's the internet's most intellectually stimulating radio show, Nerdosphere, with your hosts, Sam Cornett, Zach Schuler, Dan Nations, and Matthew McLeod. Let's get nerdy. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Nerdosphere, I'm sitting here with one of my personal idols and a very, very cool guy. He's come to hang out here in Louisville, Kentucky. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Smith.
Hello. Hello, Louisville.
How are you, sir?
And Nerdosphere. That is an awesome name.
Thank you.
How long you guys been potting?
About 6 months now.
Isn't that fucking awesome? It is better than
It's
anything
cool.
I've ever done in my life, and I would throw sex on that list because it's true. I think we all need three things as human beings: food, fucking, and to be heard. And you could usually line up food, and especially in America, and fucking can even be paid for if necessary, but most people wind up hooking that up. People always want to come. But the third one is a little tougher, and until you get to the world of podcasting, where suddenly, like, everybody's got a radio show.
Right.
Like, for as many times you sat in the car and listened to some motherfucker talking to radio and said, ugh, why is this person on? Like, I can't stand this person, or I'm funnier than this person. The podcast gives you the chance to do that very thing, and without spending much money. It's not like, I'm into this new hobby, it's going to cost me $10,000 to do. It's not like playing ice hockey.
Right.
Recording a podcast, you got yourself a laptop likely, you got yourself a smartphone, you get an app like Audacity or something, jack a mic in if you want. Mm-hmm. If not, usually it's built-in mic, and just go. Absolutely. And the freedom of that keeps people young, man. Like, I've been doing it for 7 years, it's dialed back the clock for me. That and weed, of course. But the ability to express oneself and know that some cats are listening and say whatever the fuck you want, like, that's healthy, man. That will dial back your clock. That will, like, do your heart a world of good as opposed to, like, storing tension. You let it off your chest. And then the interactivity of it, of putting it out there for an audience and then finding out you have an audience. It's an exciting concept to people that didn't necessarily ever see themselves doing entertainment. You got some people who are like, I want to make movies, I want to make TV, I want to be out in front of people. Right. But you got a bunch of podcasters who aren't those type of people at all. Because suddenly you've got this democratized media where you're like, oh, I can dive in, there's no gatekeeper, nobody's saying you can't fucking do your radio show. Right. You can't call it Nerdosphere, you can't fucking talk about what you want to talk about. It's utter freedom, man, and until somebody figures out how to fucking regulate it and start charging people to do it,
God, let's hope they don't.
Everybody should be doing exactly.
We're screwed. So.
Everybody should do it, though. I mean, it just feels good. I'm sure there's a reason you guys keep doing it. And I'm sure it's not because like you're making money. It's because
no, not at all. It's because it's fun. It's fun.
It's absolutely fun. Although I just lectured like it was a fucking school.
Well, no, and
took all the fun out of it. If that's podcasting, I don't want to do that.
It's cool as fuck that you did though, because like everybody's curious. Like, you kind of really pioneered this. Podcasting was not that big of a deal.
First time I heard of it was Gervais. That was the first time I heard of the term. Ricky Gervais had done a radio show that the newspaper had given away a link to, and you can download the show. Now, it didn't start as a podcast. It started as a radio show over in the UK. But they created it as this kind of, here, now you can, I mean, it's such a simple idea. We recorded the show when it happened. Right. Fucking listen to it again. Right. So almost like a rerun or something. But they gave it as a giveaway in a newspaper. The newspaper there on Sunday, the Sunday Times or whatever it's called. Sometimes comes with a fucking DVD. Sometimes comes with a download like this. And so it kind of took off. That was the first time I heard about it. People were like, Ricky Gervais, because I like The Office. They're like, that guy's got a podcast. And I was like, what's a podcast? Like, I don't know. Like, the people would tell you about it, nobody knew what the fuck it was. And I think it was Scott Mosier kind of said, the way I understand it, it's kind of like a radio show, but it's not on the radio. And then, when I listened to, there was a guy, what was it called? Geek News? No. Fuck.
Ain't it cool news?
No, there's these guys. The podcast doesn't exist anymore. But they came over to my office and sat down and did an interview with me, and it was kind of like this. They had one of these devices.
Right.
They had a little mixer, and they hooked up 3 mics. And I'm watching these kids, and they're like fucking 19, 21, and they're setting up like a little board and mics in a way where I'm like, how do you guys know how to do this? And they're like, oh, we just looked it up and shit. We do this all the time.
Right.
And then we sat down and started talking, and I was like, you're kidding. This is it? Like, this is a podcast? I was like, this is like a commentary track on a DVD, but just no movie. You know, it's like, I like this. So we started doing it, me and Scott Mosier, back in 2007 is when we got started. Was that right? Yeah, it was right before we went into Zach and Miri. It was February of 2007. And, you know, we the idea was like, let's do this because it's fun to sit around and talk to each other like the way we used to before we started making movies and shit. Just sit around goofing on shit and imagine this and hypotheticals and all that crap. So we hadn't spent much time together, like, beyond professionally. Like, it was just us doing work and that's it. And we bonded professionally because I liked him personally. He's a funny fucking dude and he had wacky ideas and shit. So I said, let's get together, do one of these podcasts. Like, we sit down once a week, we record it, we put it public. He's like, why do we put it public? I was like, because if we put it public, then we'll have to do it again because there'll be some level of responsibility. People will be like, where's the next one? Right. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I think we would just have recorded them, put them on like a fucking drive, and that would have been that. Like, the idea was it forced us to hang out with one another. So we sat down and started doing it, and it was just comfortable. I mean, if you go listen to the first episode of this podcast and you go listen to the most recent, you hear my stoner laugh develop. I wasn't even a stoner when I started. That's how far back I go with the podcast. Wow. I wasn't even smoking weed. Like, in fact, there's one of the episodes that people always shout out on Twitter. They're like, I was just listening to episode 26, and you swear that you'll never smoke weed or use a fleshlight. And those are like the two things I'm fully defined by now. My wife, my fleshlight, my weed. Every once in a while, my kid. So there's a vast difference between the two, but you just hear two people get very comfortable. Like, Mosier was like, I could never conceive of doing this in front of people. It was easy to do it at home. And then we wound up doing it live in front of people and stuff. Like, and now a lot of people go out and podcast live, but nobody was doing it at that point. I was like, let's take it on the road. Like, fucking, I go out and do Q&A. That's fucking great. Yeah. This is the idea of, like, Q&A, but we just look at each other and tell stories back and forth. Like, it's like stand-up comedy, but there's two of us and we're sitting down.
Right.
Like, this, we got to be able to take this to a public room.
And that's just, like, all off the top of your head, which is crazy.
That's fun. I mean, generally, awesome. you got, like, with me and him, well, I'll be like, you got a sex story? He's like, yeah. Like, when I sit down, I point to him like he's here. Jason Mewes is in the other room. Right. When Jason and I are doing Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, the only prep we have is, do you have a sex story? He's like, yeah. I'll say, do you have a frontispiece? That's usually like, oh, this is what happened today. This is what happened on the flight to get here. Some bullshit chit-chat to get us rolling. Right. Do you have a sex story? Because he's responsible to tell, like, one fucking sex story per night.
One good one.
And then, do you have a drug story? And he'll be like, yeah. And do you know your number? And yeah. And then that's pretty much it. And then the rest we kind of just figure out as we go along. Now, when you do these at home, it's great because there's no audience. Right. So you can fall down a well and a rabbit hole, or you can talk about one subject and beat it to death. Before I went off on a rant and a lecture and shit like that. If we were in a room full of people, I couldn't have done that because I'd hear the dead silence and the programming kicks in where you're like, make them laugh fast. Right. So the dynamic changes. Like, when you're at home with somebody, it's more meditative. You can kind of go down a bunch of different veins, and you're not worried so much. There's no time. Time's not of the essence. You're not hearing silence, so you're okay with it. When you do it in front of people, I don't care if your podcast is about, fucking cremation and it's dead serious. You got people in front of you, immediately this weird gene or instinct kicks in for everybody that's just like, say something funny. Right. Like, especially because everyone's sitting there looking and listening and stuff. So you wind up kind of not falling down a deep well or not following thoughts as far as you will on a home show, we call them, because nobody's laughing. You're like, fuck, move on to something else, change up. So it's weird. It'll give you two different versions of the same show if you do it like by yourselves, or if you do it, when you do it by yourselves, like anything done in the dark, or alone, it's masturbatory. You could just go again and again, and when you think you're done, you're like, I got one more, and you start again and shit. But on stage, it's not that at all. At stage, it's just like, oh shit, they'll let us know exactly where we are. if they're not laughing. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't like say some serious shit. I love getting real with the audience. They seem to kind of dig it as well. But at the same time, you know, they're like, look, we're here because you made movies where he said snoochy booch and you fucking made faces like make us fucking laugh.
In a way, I feel like you've kind of, you know, transcended that. I feel like your fans really, they love you on an intellectual level.
Oh,
and that's
fucking sweet.
No. Like, seriously, I feel like people listen to you because you have something to say. And there's not a lot of people that fucking have something to say these days. Everybody talks.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Nobody really fucking talks anymore.
What if you're listening to a podcast? What sucks you in? What keeps your interest? Because we're talking about, they're like, oh no, we're only hitting a certain niche audience with this, and we're not getting the feedback that we want. And you know,
you got to remember. And this is not taking anything away from what he says or Jason. They were famous first.
To begin with, yeah. We started with a big boost.
So because of that, people were then like,
but
I want to hear what the fuck he has to say.
What do you, if you're listening to, you know...
somebody that's not famous.
Aisha or, you know, whoever's out there.
Well, like something like any of the NPR shows or fucking the shows where they're like, have you heard this story? And they go into like a kind of dramatic telling of a news story or something like that. Like that's what we based most of our Smodcast structure on, was NPR shows, like the idea of Fresh Air or Wait, Don't Tell Me, like shit where you're like, oh, I'm fucking learning, and you know, these people are talking for 50-cent words from time to time. It's above me. Sometimes I got to reach for it. Sometimes I feel like I'm as smart as it. But I never feel beneath it. And I felt like, let's do that, but let's make it funny. So what I look for in a show is what hooks me in is something like essentially what we do, where you start with a news story that I never heard before. You take me somewhere, tell me something I don't know, that's currency. Right. Because now I go into the world and I'm like, did you know that fucking dreams are that? You know what I'm saying? And suddenly that's worth something. Particularly in a like room full of people and fucking it's quiet and shit and people look to you, you have something to talk about. Absolutely. Or if you're making podcasts, you have something to put into it. The lovely thing about this medium, like you don't have to suck your gut in because there's no picture. So you can just talk. But B, it basically aggregates every experience you've ever had in your life is fair game. Suddenly you have something to talk about at any given moment because you've lived this a life just like everybody, and you held on to shit. Like I tend to remember a lot of shit, and I've tried to smoke a bunch of way. It don't work. So I tend to hold on to a lot of detail, and people like that in a storytelling medium where they're not looking at images. Like I'm weak in filmmaking because I'm not a good visual storyteller. It's taken me 20 years to learn my craft as a filmmaker because I didn't have that muscle. If you look at Clerks, I mean, even Clerks you get away with as the first film. Mallrats is one of the most poorly framed films I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't look like a movie. It doesn't look like a TV show. It is funny. I'll give you that. But it doesn't look like it should. And that's because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, we got lucky with the first one that got picked up. So for the next 20 years almost, and it's coming up on 20 years, I just learned my craft in front of people. Now, that makes it tough. If I want to tell you a story, I got to do it with pictures as well. So I'm working at a deficit. But if I want to tell you a story without pictures, like in podcasts, oh shit, then I'm Gandalf. I'm a ninja. Like I don't have to put an image together. There's nothing for you to judge on based on like clearly he doesn't know the rules of this medium. Like if it just comes down to oral storytelling, shit, we can all do that. We all have conversations. We can all chit chat back and forth. And some of us think that, you know, the fucking shit we say is more interesting than not, so we tend to want to overshare at all times. So it became like, it is the perfect medium for me. Like, if this existed before film, I never would have went near film. Mm-hmm. I talk about Richard Linklater's Slacker was the movie that made me want to be a filmmaker. I saw that movie, I said, oh my God, I want to be a filmmaker. But if podcasts had existed, I just would have went home and recorded a podcast about how much I like Slacker. Like, I never would have went beyond that because my strength was in talking or writing dialogue. It wasn't anything else. And the only reason I went into directing was because I was like, I read so many stories, and this is pre-internet, so many stories like in Premiere Magazine or, you know, people write books about the movie industry and shit. And they always talk about how the writer gets shit on. Like, the writer, you know, passes the script over, and then they're like, fuck off, and the director changes it, and fucking the original intent's not there. And so I was like, shit, well, if I want to make these films myself, I should just direct them to make sure that people do the dialogue the way I wrote it. Otherwise, they might not say it right. It'll sound stupid. So I kind of like got drawn into filmmaking. I wanted to write, and I got drawn into the directing thing because I was like, well, I guess this will keep it secure. And the indie movement was burgeoning. Yeah, it was part of it. But if podcasts had existed, oh my God, I would have just dove into that. Like, the idea of being able to share, there was no fucking internet. Like, never mind Twitter, Facebook.
Right.
There was no internet. There was no way to get in touch with people. If you liked a comic book, you wrote a fucking letter, and you prayed that they printed it in the back. And you hope they answered you. And then every fucking, you wait 3 months and look through the comic, you're like, fuck, my letter wasn't good enough. Or sometimes they'd be like, we had time for one letter, but the rest is a guest column. You're like, no, this was the issue I wrote eloquently on.
You tweet. Speaking of that, you're talking about letters back in the day and how people respond so quickly today, and they expect a quick response.
Oh God, yeah.
How do you really handle some of that? Because you seem like you did a great job with the guy today. You're talking about the guy that whoever that was film critic.
How do I feel about it?
I mean,
as a human being, whenever somebody says something that's negative about you or your work or people you love or something like that, it don't feel good. Yeah. I don't give a shit who you are. Right. I don't know how. I don't care how long you've been doing it. I don't care if you're fucking impervious to pain because you're like, I make more. I'm the highest paid fucking whatever in my whatever.
It still hurts.
It hurts. Yeah. It stinks. Nobody wants to read that. Everyone wants nice things. You know why? When something nice happens, your body reacts. Endorphins rush, and suddenly you get that same little high that you get when, you're laughing, or the same little high you get when apparently you use opiates, or the same little high that you get, when you fuck. Like, it's positive. When somebody says something negative about you, your endorphins don't fire. You sit there going like, oh, and what it fires instead is the internal where you go like, am I? You start questioning everything. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a certain percentage of it you can easily toss away.
Sure.
You can read, I mean, doing this as long as I've been doing it now, and I've been on line with the fan base and the non-fan base since 95, man. So, like, way the fuck back. So you can read people at this point. I can't read them all like a book, but you can generally read the tone, and I've seen any number of tweets, posts, thoughts come through the transom over the years where you can section people off. And they're the people that just say shit because they're like, why you, why not me? Like, why the fuck do you have it? Like, your shit, like, my shit's funnier and I am funnier than you. And I get that feeling. When I saw Slacker, I sat there enjoying it. Don't get me wrong, I love Slacker. It made me laugh. But the audience around me, and I was in a theater about 150 people, maybe 200, were dying, dude. Like, fucking dying, like it was Monty Python. And they were slamming their knee slapping, if you will. Wow. Literally. And I was filled not with anger, like, and that's what it seems like most of the kids today are filled with. They watch someone enjoy your shit, and they're like, I'm so mad at you. It didn't fill me with anger, but it filled me with purpose, because I was like, if they think this is funny, then I think I am funny. I know I could be funnier than this, so why not me? Why can't I give this a shot?
Amen.
So if anything in life, if anybody listens to this, and sometimes you see shit in life or hear shit where you're like, oh, I just want to tear into that asshole. Use it instead. Like, tearing into that asshole, like, it'll get it off your chest, but you've gone no further. And you still hate that fucker, and that fucker's still winning, and you're still right where you are. If you're going to do anything, take that, use it. Use that hatred, turn it into something useful. So you look at me, use it as inspiration. Don't go, I fucking hate you, and spend 20 tweets over the course of an hour fucking trying to hurt my cause. Like, here's what you want to do. You go, if an asshat like this guy, who I don't respect and I think has no talent, has a foot in this business, then I'm definitely going to make it in. Exactly. Like, if he did it, I'm fucking bound. I'm duty bound. And I will use this motherfucker as my compass. And I'll get where I'm going to go, because now I know for a fact, if the world will reward this kind of chicanery, then they will reward me. Heaven. So that's how I would do it. But most cats go the other way, where it's so easy to reach people now and just be like, fire hostility at them and shit. And that's fine. I get it. Some people blow off steam, but it's just not productive. Like, I'm all for blowing off steam. I'm all for jacking off, wasting time. But I love productivity. If you can find a way to be both at the same time, lazy and productive, then you have cracked the code, my friend.
Yeah.
So be productive, even in your hatred, even your dislike for something. Wasting your time on the internet, like slagging it over and over again. Preferable would be go create your thing. The thing that you go like, you think this is good? This is what I give you. Then you're at least producing something to show for it. Right. And then what happens is, you channel all that into something creative. You got something to show. You forgot what you were mad about in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
You don't sit there and dwell on that shit anymore. Like in the beginning of my career, dude, I had such a mean on for Chris Columbus. Go figure. Why? I don't know. But you could find an issue of Film Threat where I'd shoot this guy a brand new asshole. And why? Is because fucking Home Alone made a lot of money. And he didn't even write it. John Hughes, one of my personal heroes, wrote
awesome.
it. But this guy directed it, and then I read somewhere he wanted to direct Daredevil, and that was all I needed to read. Thank God it was before the internet. So in this piece, I'm just like, who the fuck's this guy think he is? This fucking hack, he can't direct. He can get your fucking hands off Daredevil. This piece of shit, he didn't know what he's doing. Just mouth. I'm like 23 at this point. So I was represented by CAA. I got CAA as an agency.
Small agency.
Very tiny little agency in Hollywood, and people have never heard of it. And I get a call from my agent, who I hadn't been with very long at that point, maybe 6 months. I said, hey, and she goes, did you say all these things about Chris Columbus in Film Threat magazine? And I was like, yeah, did you read that? I was like, I love Film Threat. I didn't know you read Film Threat. She's going like, he called and he was really upset. Like, he was just, you really crushed him. Why did you say these things? And I was like, Chris Columbus is a real person? Like, I didn't know there was a person at the end of these comments. Who knew? He was the guy that directed Home Alone, that fucking hack. So she was like, why don't you write him an apology letter? And I was like, okay. And I wrote him an apology letter, at the end of which I was like, why am I writing, I'm 23. Why am I writing apology letters? But years later, man, like, I don't fucking begrudge Chris Columbus anything. And, like, I'm happy that Home Alone did well for him and whatnot. I don't recognize that kid that tore into fucking Chris Columbus. Or I do recognize him. I want to sit him down and be like, you'll save yourself a lot of time and heartache not wasting time with that and channeling it into something else. It's something that kid in the article will learn in about 1.5 years' time.
Right.
But I could go back and shrink that 1.5 years to about 6 months for him if he would just, listen to me. But I can't go back in time. I don't have a time machine. The other thing I tell him is stop eating so much. But I read that interview and I am kind of like ashamed. And not because I'm like, Chris Columbus is a good guy, but why did I shoot my mouth off? Why did the world need to know my personal feelings about fucking me not liking the fact that he might have directed Daredevil? Like, and I understand, like, people are like, well, that's what the internet's for. You get to express your opinion. Absolutely. And everybody should express their opinion, but not always to the detriment of somebody else.
Did your mom or your dad have more of an influence on you? Mom.
Yeah. Mom was, I said it on the show tonight, Mom was, and nobody ever asked that question. And so it was a fresh answer and stuff, and I had to actually think about it. Because normally people ask questions where I'm like, I've been asked this a zillion times, here comes the story. This was new, and I had to actually go like, oh shit, who is the big? And then I realized, or they asked about the female characters, why? Right. Traces right back to Mom. Yeah, Mom was and still is very, very influential. Not as much as she is in my brother. Like she owns my fucking brother. He lives around the block from me. But Mom was, the authority figure. Dad worked at the post office at night, so Dad was. I hesitate to say he was the fun guy, although he would take me to the movies all the time. So that was fun. Right. But I don't consider my dad, I wouldn't, he's long past, but I would never have considered him like a fun guy. But he was, not really at home. He was at night he did shifts from 10 till 7 in the morning, 10 till 6. So he'd come home by 7 o'clock, so we'd see him as we were heading to school and shit. Right. After we left, he went to bed around 10 o'clock in the morning, and then he'd sleep till around 2-ish, and that's when we got home from school. Mm-hmm. And then we'd see him throughout the day. He went back to sleep at about 3 hours later, about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock or something. Then we had to be quiet in the house. Couldn't turn the TV up and shit, because every once in a while I'd be like, I hear it! Turn it down. And then at 9 o'clock, he would get up. And for the next hour, aside from like the house reeking of aftershave that he would fucking pour all over. And my father was not like a shower guy. He was one of those like people from that generation.
Every Saturday.
Just once a fucking
come here, wash my hair.
And what he did was he'd soak his hair and just comb it back like a greaser, but he didn't have enough hair to truly grease. And it wasn't like he put in pomade. It's weird, right? He had a real shellacked hair. But he would get up an hour in advance, and it wasn't really to get ready. I think it was to get psychologically ready. He hated that fucking job. Like
hard-working American guy.
Oh, he hated it, dude. He
worked where?
At the post office.
Yeah.
He tells a story where he's just like, I was happy to get that job. He's like, he didn't have a dream. He wasn't like, I want to do this. I want to build a restaurant. I want to make cupcakes. Or he didn't.
Right.
He was happy to get a fucking job so he could pay for his family. His big dream in life, he wanted to get married and have kids, and he did that. So this job was paying for that, and this job rather than the last job. And it has opened up a possible career and tenure, whatever the fuck. So he's there for about a week. And he gets pulled over by the other dudes and like, hey, man, you got to slow it down, Don. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And they're like, no, seriously, slow it down. Because you're making everybody fucking look bad. Like, stop being so speedy. Like, fucking, you don't have to do 3 bins a night. 1 bin's fucking fine. And so they beat it out of him over the course of like that opening year at the job. They were like, stop working. Like,
So
you're
hard.
ruining the curve.
Right.
In that ways, he was like Jim Gordon in Batman Begins. A good cop trying to do
Postal
right.
Service. People will start to expect things.
Yeah, he's like, who will deliver the mail? And his job was so fucking soul-crushing. He just canceled stamps. So he's the guy you hate. Like back in the day, you wish like, oh, fucking, they didn't stamp the stamp. I can use it again. He's the guy whose job it was to make sure you couldn't fucking reuse the stamp. So he hated going to work, hated his job so much. He would have people call in for him, like my mom all the time, be like, Grace, I don't want to go to work tonight. And when I was younger, that was very irregular. And as I got older, that was more and more. So at 9 o'clock, you would have to call, well, 10 o'clock. He got up at 9. 10 o'clock, you had to call in and be like, Don Smith's not going to be there tonight. Now, the sturm and drang that my old man put into this fucking call, you would have thought at the other end of the phone was like, I am the great and powerful Oz. He never wanted to make this call. He always had somebody else doing it. When my mom refused, he'd then move down the line to like my brother, my sister. Finally, in the later years, it was me, and I'd have to call up. And after years of watching the fear behind this phone call and like who's going to do it and the planning and shit, to finally be the one going like, all right, I'm making the call, and hearing the voice on the other side and finding out what all, like, I'd only seen one side of that conversation my whole life. So now I got to hear the other end of the call, and I swear to you, this is what happened. Dispatch, Don Smith is sick. He won't be in tonight. Thank you. Click. And that was it. And I was like, you're kidding me. This is what you've been vexed by your whole life? That phone call? They didn't care. It was a government job. But for him,
hilarious.
it was a mountain, dude. The thought of like having to call in. Oh, he couldn't do it. So the older he got and the more he did that job, he didn't quite make it 30 years. I think he made it about 27. But he hated it so much. And he was like, as much as my mother shaped me and she was the go-to parent, she was kind of always there. My dad did 2 very important things for me that shaped what I became, what I do for a living. One is he took me to the movies every Wednesday, to a matinee, like because you go to an early bird special is $1.25.
Oh.
So he'd pull me out of fucking school, and I went to a Catholic school and shit. And there'd be every week he'd be like, "What do I say?" My mom's like, "Tell him our aunt died." And I was like, "All right." First week I was like, "My aunt died," and they're like, "Oh, it's so sad. Go." And my dad picked me up. We went to the movies.
How many relatives do you have?
Bingo. Bingo, dude. 6 months on, they were like, you have
Holy
the worst
shit.
luck in your family. No, you know it's a sin to lie, right? I was like, I know. But my uncle's dead, so I got to be. So he took me to the movies left and right, and that definitely, he didn't take me to the ballpark, so he didn't turn me into a fan of the sports. He turned me into a fan of the make-believe, the movies and shit. That was important thing number 1. Number 2, my father hated his job so much. He was terrified of his job. That fucking phone call was the biggest hill. He could never fucking climb it himself. He hated going to work at that job. He didn't hate work because I watched him mow lawns and work for my grandmother and work for my mother. But he hated that fucking job. And he never sat me down and said, son, go do something you love and learn to get paid for because fucking you don't want to work for the man. But that was the lesson of his whole fucking life. His working life was like he hated working. And I said to myself, I can't do it. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to just work for somebody. And I didn't necessarily want to be my own boss, but I was like, I can't do that. I got to find something in life that's not that. So I figured I'd own a deli because I really knew how to make sandwiches and shit. And if I owned my own deli, nobody would fuck with me and shit like that. And they couldn't tell me, pace yourself, slow down.
Right.
But later on, it became film, which is the ultimate way to ditch any real world job. Make pretend for a living.
So vocation, since your father kind of got you into this, if it were to be up to you, writer or filmmaker?
Writer. That's what I always kind of saw myself as. Long before I fell in love with the idea of making film. Slacker, like I said, was the one that made me realize, oh shit, I could do this. Up till then, I just watched movies and was like, I didn't know who made them. I mean, I knew directors' names and blah, 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 but I didn't know where those people came from. I didn't know about film schools. I didn't know. I just assumed everyone was born into the business and everybody knew each other and that was that and blah, blah, blah. And then you're watching Slacker and you're going, wait a second, some guy in Bumblefuck, Texas made this? Like, he's not Spielberg, he's not Lucas. Like, he's a dude just like me, and you read about him and, you know, it becomes more and more interesting and more feasible. So film was kind of, because of Richard, he made it seem easy and to kind of protect the scripts. But long before film, and that was on my 21st birthday, back when I was 12, I fell in love with writing. Like, the idea of writing, my sister introduced me to it, man. Like, she had this notebook, you know, one of those marble composition notebooks. You open up the cover, and she got a drawing that she did. Her and her friend, you could tell it's her short hair and she had glasses and shit. Her friend, Patty Michalsick, her other friend, Kathy, and some other chick. And they're kneeling around this cellar door. And, you know, they got like a candle, and it's like drawn like the way a fucking 10 or 11-year-old would or something like that. And it's like the mystery of the secret door or some such shit. I found it in her room on her desk. I was like, what's this? Because, you know, the first page is a drawing. So I was like, great, more artwork. And the rest, just words, number of words. So what is this? She was like, I'm writing a book. My sister, Virginia. She said, I'm writing a book. I said, what do you mean you're writing a book? And she's like, I'm writing a book about me and my friends. And we go on an adventure. And I was like, you can't just write. Mind you, I'm fucking 8 years old. You can't just fucking write a book, man. Like, what about the government? You got to ask somebody. Like, look. Like, it was just, you know, in my head, I'm like, this is a book, because we had books all over, and I'm like, you can't just do this. And she's like, anyone could just write anything they want. You don't have to ask permission. Like, you write stories, and that was the first person that introduced me to the notion of writing. And there she was writing this goofy little story about her and her friends going on this fucking adventure. And that really turned me on. I was like, holy shit, man. I want to write about me and my friends going on an adventure. And I never wound up doing that until years later. But the first thing that I wrote, first creative writing exercise that wasn't assigned by school or something like that, was on this big electric typewriter that we had in the house. And it was about 4 pages long, and it was single-sided. And it was a story about going to visit my relatives. My parents made us go to our relatives like every fucking weekend. So this was a kind of satirization of going on that trip, where, of course, like, the relatives were the larger-than-life monsters and shit. And it was, you know, a first stab at satire by a guy who watched a lot of Saturday Night Live and was just putting together the notion of writing as a hobby, as something one chooses to do as opposed to an assignment. So I put it together and I stapled it, and my brother had walked in the kitchen and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm writing. He's like, for school? And I was like, no, I'm just writing a story. He's like, about what? And I was like, going to Aunt Marie's. He's like, get out of here, let me read it. So I let him read it, and I was sitting there while I read it, and like, I didn't know yet to have the butterflies in the stomach, or like, I hope he likes it or doesn't. This was the first. So I'm just sitting there as he reads, and he just starts laughing. But I knew he wasn't laughing at it. Like, I knew it wasn't derisive. You could tell. He wasn't like, what are you, fucking dumb? Yeah. He was enjoying it. And the feeling I got, which I guess was an endorphin rush to the highest degree at that point, right then and there, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to write shit that makes people fucking get that reaction. My brother was my first audience, and him laughing set me on the course to be like, all right, just go for the laughs. Try to make people laugh. It's interesting now. In my career, I'm getting to a place where I'm like, now I just want to creep people out, and not in real life. Although I do that anyway. But I mean, like, you know, like Red State was the last flick I made. I got this flick we're gonna make now, Tusk. This movie about a guy who sews another guy into a walrus thing, makes him a human walrus. It's just real fucked up and dark.
Is it kind of like Sharknado?
No, God, no. I wish. I wish I was that clever. It's more like the Human Centipede, but with a walrus, so it's cuddly.
Right the fuck on.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're going to do next.
What was the other Skin movie
so
with
the skin I live in?
Oh,
yeah.
The Almodovar movie.
How'd you like that one?
Creepy. I like him a lot. He's always interesting.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Probably doing more of the same shit. I mean, if I'm lucky, every once in a while I figure out something cool and new to do that buys me a couple more years of relevancy. The latest thing was the podcast. We did an episode of Smodcast called The Walrus and the Carpenter, and in it we're doing a story we read in a British website about this dude who's like, I'll give you a room in my house, but you got to dress like a walrus. It's real fucked up. So we spin it into a horror movie. We're making fun of it and just having a good time and shit. And you listen to the podcast, about 26 minutes in, somebody else takes over me. It's not me, and it must be the weed, I guess. But it's somebody going like, this could be a movie, man. Like, I see this. This is real, and you could totally do this. And what about this? And we can go to Blumhouse Pictures. They make movies for like $3 million. This could be a perfect $3 million fucking movie. Who wouldn't go see this movie about a dude in a walrus suit? We'd cast Michael Parks, the dude who was in Red State. Mm-hmm. So I say, like, hashtag it. Walrus, yes, if you like the idea. Walrus, no. Your vote's going to count and shit. And the podcast ends, and Mosier's like, that's funny. And he goes back to his life. And then the next day, I start seeing all these walrus yes hashtags on Twitter, and I was like, it was a good idea, wasn't it? So I started thinking more and more, and I was just like, well, I'm in this weird place right now where I just turned in Clerks 3 and the budget and the script and the cast list and the cash flow schedule to the Weinstein Company, and we're waiting to hear whether they want to make the movie or not. 'Cause they did Clerks 2, they get first dibs. If they don't, we get to go elsewhere. Maybe I get to finance it myself. So as I'm sitting around waiting, I find myself in this first world problem that I hadn't experienced in a few years, because for the last few years I've been doing podcasts, and that's immediacy, man. Like, you don't need to ask anybody. It's like, oh shit, let's talk, and we open up and we go. There's no planning. There's no like, Ben, can you come do this movie? It's just you fucking start chatting and run. Film is completely different. Like, there's no immediacy whatsoever. You fucking rush to get your script done and turn it in, and then you wait.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And you understand it's millions of dollars at play. It's not yours. If it's your millions of dollars, you don't have to wait. You get to go. I don't have millions of dollars. I got to wait. So, you're supposed to be patient. I'm being patient, but you stand there looking at the phone every day going, fuck, are they going to call? Are they going to call? And, like, I was on a roll here, man. Like, my creative juices are flowing. I want to go. Like, you're like fucking Marky Mark at Boogie Nights. You're like, I want to fuck now. My dick's hard.
That's a perfect analogy.
It is, and it's immature just like that. It's like, you got to realize, if you're asking somebody for money, like, we're going to vet this and make sure we want to do it. So rather than sit there and wait, though, I was like, I'm going to use my time wisely. And I thought about that podcast, and I was just like, I'm going to start writing it as an exercise. I'm going to just start writing this fucking wacky script. And it was called The Walrus and the Carpenter. When I started writing it, I was like, I'm going to call it Tusk. I was listening to Fleetwood Mac's Tusk over and over, writing for 2 days straight. And I had, after 2 days, about 40 pages of something that I was like, this actually is something. I handed it to my wife, who was a pretty good judge, because she doesn't listen to Smodcast. She don't like that type of humor where you sit around and go, imagine this happened, imagine this. She don't like hypotheticals. Yeah. I try to do it on a podcast with her. She's like, I don't do that shit. I'm like, all right. So I know that, like, I can't go to her and be like, not only am I writing a script, which I said like I wasn't going to do anymore, but I'm writing a script, and it's based on this conversation we had in Smodcast, and it's about if this guy wants people to dress in a walrus suit. And so I was like, you know what, this will be a good test. And I put it in front of her, like, hey, let's ask Mikey. He hates everything. So I gave it to her, and she was just like, she had a suggestion about the structure up front, but other than that, she was like, I want to know where it's going. She's like, this is fucked up. This is very original. She said, where'd this come from? You're making me creeped out. And I was like, I don't know. It's just I'm falling down a well with it. I'm going to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I kept going, and it took 20 days from the time I started. It was about a week off. We went to Florida and toured with the movie. I didn't really work on it then. So total, from the time I started to the time I had a first draft, it was 20 days. So I gave the script to a few people, and they were like, dude, this is a movie. And it is a fucking movie. Like, I got to build it around that dude, Michael Parks. And what I wanted to do with it was, on Red State, I had such a good time. I love that movie. Problem with it, though, and there's many problems if you don't like the movie, but the problem with the movie when we took it out in the world was Michael Parks should have been the biggest, baddest part of that movie. The thing you walked away talking about, the guy who played Pastor Aben Cooper, just like his performance was amazing. One of the 5 best performances I've ever seen in my life, in any medium whatsoever. But the problem was I went out there and I was like, we're taking this out ourselves. And the story became about me and taking the movie out and shit. And it polarizes people going, fuck this asshole. Who's he think he is? Taking out his own movie, dick. And then makes other people surround you and be like, he's fucking leading the way, blah, blah, blah. all this Sturm and Drang, what gets lost in the process is that man's amazing fucking performance. Right. So that was one regret I got about Red State, man. I love everything about how it fell out and how we played it, but I regret that dude's performance didn't get the attention it deserves. He won an award at the Sitges Film Festival, but he should have got more. So I built this fucking walrus thing around him, which I guess is a dubious honor at best, but I swear to you, since I didn't have an agenda, since I was like, let me just see where this fucking goes, I said to myself, like, what would I like to do? Like, if I have to go to a movie set, what do you want to do on that movie set? You know, what do you want to see? And I was like, I can't think of anything more I'd want to see than watch Michael Parks just say big speeches. Like, that was fun. Sitting on Red State, watch this motherfucker take this dialogue and make it sing. Like, I've never been one of those cats that likes singers. I like singer-songwriters because I'm like, you write the song, you sing the song. That makes sense. You sing the song that you don't write? I don't get that. And then people say, oh, but Sinatra could take a song and make it his. I'm like, yeah, but he didn't write it. That don't make a difference. When it comes to something like Michael Parks, he didn't write those words, but he takes it, he sings. He does. And suddenly you sit there going, oh, I understand why people like singers that don't necessarily write their own songs. It's the voice. It's where he takes you. It's just like this dude could take something and make it so evocative, so emotive, and it didn't come from him. And he's not this person at all. He's playing a guy filled with hate, and he's spitting out like hate speeches, and you could just sit there and listen to him because it's so eloquently put out there into the world. So I said, if I got to sit on a movie set, man, I like it with a dude in a walrus suit. I want Michael Parks to be there so I can watch him fucking make speeches and shit. Like, you know, let him read The Walrus and the Carpenter. Like, I've paid money to see that dude read Lewis Carroll out loud. I'm all for this. So I started writing with that in mind, and because of that, I was like, fuck, I'll just give him another speech to do, another speech. Because that's what I would like to watch him do. And then built a movie around it. And it's fucking good, man.
What would you like in the feel of it, too?
Red State. It's a perfect fucking sister to the Red State movie we did, but if I had to point to another movie, like Misery, I guess, in terms of, because basically it's two people, one is captive. Human Centipede, definitely in as much as, like, there's a fucked up angle and as much as our guy wants to sew a dude into a walrus suit, but not so much in the, you know, the Human Centipede is a guy going, I just want to do it, just fucking do it.
Right.
Or, like, by the time you get to the bottom of this well, it actually, like, makes sense why the dude is the way he is and what he's doing and stuff. You actually feel some compassion for him, and I think that's the trick. The big trick of making it for me is going to be this. In a movie where you've got a fucking dude sewn into this giant walrus costume, and he's turned into a human walrus with tusks implanted in his face and shit like that. My job as a filmmaker is to make sure that when you leave that theater, that's not the first thing that you're talking about. The only thing you're talking about is that dude's fucking performance. I want to take away all the politics, take away all the fucking religion, take away all the sex, take away all the, like, I fucking don't like Kevin Smith. Take away all the shit that attached itself to Red State because of me, because of whatever, and just let that dude sit out front and center and just quietly go into the background. Problem is, the backstory of the movie's so delicious because it's like, what? It's a podcast? Like, the cover of the script says, Tusk, written by Kevin Smith, based on Smodcast episode 259 by Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier. So nobody's done that yet, and that's I don't know if anybody's jockeying to do it, but we'd be the first podcast that actually became a movie. So right now, the backstory is adorable because you can listen to it. You can listen to the episode where all of a sudden it goes from us talking about a news story to becoming an idea, and then like 20 days later, I was like, there's a script, and then 25 days later, I was like, we're in pre-production. So the mythology of it is interesting enough. Already people are writing articles about it. And hopefully everyone gets it out of their system long before they get to see that movie. Because you want them going in going, we're going to see this fucking walrus thing. And you want them coming out going, that old man fucking just blew me off the fucking screen. And this dude's 73 years old.
Yeah.
He's that old?
He's 73.
Wow.
And he's still fit as a fiddle, sharp as a tack and whatnot. And think about it. Like, you think about how much we all know at our ages. Think about what you'll know if you make it to fucking 73. Like, that dude has a tool bag full of precise, fucking sharpened, well-honed tools. Man, I just can't wait to watch dialogue fall out of his fucking mouth.
Didn't you say Tarantino's got like a VHS, just like full clips and stuff?
We were at it was adorable, dude. It was so fucking sweet. We were at Quentin has a theater at his house, and he wanted to watch Red State. He had just gotten done writing Django, and he had been buried in it, and then when he came up for air, he's like, I'm finished, I want to watch movies. So he'd heard about Red State, and he knew fucking Parks was in it and shit. So he said, can you send a print? And we don't live too far from each other, like maybe 5 minutes or something. So we sent a print over. He's 35 millimeter at his place. And he's got like a theater, he built like literally a movie theater with movie theater seats and popcorn curtains and shit. It's pretty fun.
Nice.
It really, really nice. And he puts trailers on to everything. Like, not only does he show a movie, but then he curates the trailers and go, this would be good with this and shit.
That sounds like something
It's ideal.
That's awesome.
So we went over, I called Parks. I was like, Quentin's going to watch Red State. And he was like, I want to go. So we went over to watch the flick together, and that was wonderful, like, because he dug it, and I sat next to him, and like he literally like like he hitting me, where I'm like, holy shit, and like this dude, I love this dude. He's like a god to me. And so after the movie, we go back into his house and we're just sitting around chit chatting, and he goes, I got to show you something. And he goes digging through. He's still got VHSs like right next to his setup and whatnot. So he's still active with a VHS. It's not like, oh, this is where I keep them.
Right.
Like the VHS was on. Like he's still fucking using it, even though the rest of us are in the future and shit. He loves his tech. He pulls out this tape. It says Michael Parks mixtape on it.
Nice.
Puts it in, and it's literally, he goes, this is my Michael Parks tape. He goes, it's a VHS full of shit from Michael that I taped on TV over the years before I met him, before we made movies together. So he sits you down. It's like a 60-minute tape, and basically it's a highlight reel of Parks, like what a lot of people would be like the worst parts of Parks' career. This guy, Quentin, fucking such a poet, he's sitting there breaking down this volleyball movie. It's a 1970s volleyball, looks like a volleyball TV movie, and Parks plays the coach. And he puts this scene on, man, and he finds the eloquence and the beauty in it, and it's in Parks. Like, I don't know that I ever would have seen it. You know what I'm saying? If I watched that movie as a kid, even as an adult, I couldn't get past everyone else's bad acting or wooden acting or just limited acting. But in the middle of that, you got this oasis of this dude who's clearly out of his depth, and as much as he's way better than everything else. One of these things is not like the other, and it's Parks. And Quentin had this eye for it, and he would just tape this dude. Like, he was a fan. He just liked this random actor that a lot of people didn't remember, but, you know, my mom knew. Like, when we were making Red State, my mom was like, I know him. And I was like, how do you know him? She's like, I think I know him from television. I was like, then came Bronson? She goes, yes! Is that Bronson? I was like, yeah. And she started looking at him like my father's been passed at that point 7 years. She started looking at him like she's wetting the pants and shit. Like, oh my God, that's Bronson? Crossing her legs and like, introduce me, Tiger. She went and talked to him, and she remembered him as a recording artist. You know, he's got a beautiful voice. He used to sing back in the day. So I dig him, but I wouldn't have found him without Quentin. That's why for this Walrus movie, I sent Quentin a script because I was like, dude, there's a part here. He played a French Canadian detective that's investigating. You got a thick Quebec accent. But I sent him a top letter with the script going, I want you to do it because I would never have found Michael Parks were it not for From Dusk Till Dawn. Right. Were it not for that fucking tape that you sat there and he recorded, and he was just like, something special about this random actor that nobody else gives a fuck about me. And it took him decades from when he was taping to the moment where I see From Dusk Till Dawn and go, holy shit, like that guy's amazing. I walk out of that movie like, because Parks is in the opening 5 minutes, walks into Benny's World of Liquor and steals the fucking show.
It's one of the most powerful scenes in the
By
flick.
far.
You immediately lean
And
forward and you're like,
odd,
is this the movie?
Off-kilter pauses, and you're like, and you're just waiting for what's he going to say after
it's
that.
the pauses where it's just like, and he's so conspiratorial. He talks down like this and looking around.
Fucking retard.
Yes, and he's frank and candid. I'd never seen this dude in a movie before. I'd never seen that character. I'd never seen anything remotely. I was charmed beyond charmed. I was like, I hope this is the whole movie. And then he gets fucking killed. So I walked out of that movie at the end going, as much as I love that flick and had fun, that guy, that cop at the beginning, could you imagine working with that dude? Because I've worked with actors and I've been watching movies my whole life and shit. That was like the first time I remember seeing somebody do something I'd never fucking seen or experienced before. I'm like, I know acting, and every once in a while you see really great performance like Billy Bob Thornton and fucking what's that movie that Sam Raimi
Sling
made?
Blade.
Nah, he's definitely good in that. But the Sam Raimi movie, A Simple Plan.
Simple Plan.
The character he plays in Simple Plan, that's not Billy Bob Thornton. Like, that is supernatural. That dude, he disappears, and that character is a real human being. Like, it transcends performance. But this wasn't even that, because I know Billy Bob Thornton is an actor and he's putting on a performance. This dude, I didn't know that he was acting. I didn't know what he came from Mars, and I was like, this is exciting. He should be in everything. And Quentin kept putting him in stuff, and Robert put him in stuff and whatnot. So I always had in the back of my head, like, one day I want to put him in something, but I didn't have anything. Well, what do you call him up? Be like, you want to play fucking Silent Bob's dad? Like, there's nothing. I didn't have anything classic to do and shit. And then, the Red State thing happened, and so I feel bad that his performance wasn't paid the attention it was due. I mean, I feel like I'm responsible because of the backstory overwhelms the movie. I was like, I'm taking it out and fucking blah, blah, blah. At the same time, I do think, like, he's ripping hate speech, so I don't know how far it was going to travel. But in this movie, he don't have to do that. Like, he says batshit crazy things, and he's a vile human being. But, like, you have such compassion for him because of the shit he reveals his past as he goes on. You're like, oh. But his performance, man, like, he'll take us so many fucking different places where it's worth it for the price of admission alone for me to just sit there and watch him on set. Like, hope the movie does well, and I think it will because it's fucking strange, especially, like, to take it as far as we've taken it so far. If we could take it all the way to actually wind up making it, there's no way that people don't go like, have you heard about this fucking walrus movie? It's got to be to do a couple bucks worth of business, but even if it doesn't do a fucking dime, man, just to sit there and watch that dude do it again, like, that's like
Sharknado can do anything. Come on, that's the way I look at it.
Sharknado going to go to New York next, which I found very exciting. It's to the last one. The first one was in California, in Los Angeles. Next one's New York, which means that the third one could be Jersey. So I put Sharknado right into my backyard.
Jersey Shore Shark Attack, is that what it was?
Yes, that was right. There was a movie. Yeah.
All that brings me kind of to another question. I know it's getting late and everybody's probably tired, but what, in your career, man, you've done so many things. You've been, a writer, a director, you speak, you do the podcasting thing, you branched into radio. You've done so much shit, and you've been successful and
mildly, always to a level, never breakout. Like, I always feel like if I had breakout success in any one thing, I probably was stuck with that, and then everything else would never have happened. Like, let's say the first, well, not Clerks, let's say one of those, let's say Mallrats had done the business that Universal thought it would do. Universal thought it was going to do like $100 million. It didn't. It did $2 million. But if it had done 100, everything would have been different. I wouldn't have tried any of this other shit. Right. I wouldn't have even made Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy, as conceived during Mallrats, was a high school comedy because I wanted to do this adult story, and then the producer, Jim Jacks, was like, no, man, Clueless is selling, so you should set it in high school. And I was like, all right. And so there's somewhere on this laptop still, drives years later, there's fucking 12 pages of a Chasing Amy movie, same plot, set in fucking high school. Wow. And it's abysmal. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to be that cat, but that would have been the life I would have done, like, if I had tasted success early. Right. So I feel fortunate that I've been successful enough to keep going. I got a nice house. I haven't had to ever take a real job. Yeah. Adapt and evolve. But I always stay under the fucking radar, and not even always by choice. But living there has prolonged my career, I think, and allowed me to try cool shit. Like, if the movies, if Mallrats done $100 million, I never would have tried podcasting. I would have been interviewed on other people's podcasts. I would have been a really whip smart, good guest and shit, because obviously I like to talk. But I would never have tried it myself, and that's been like the sole source of so much of the happiness of the last 5 years of my life come from these podcasts. Making Jason Mewes, bringing him back from the brink, like keeping him sober with one podcast. I get to sit down and do a show with my wife, so I get to put her front and center and make her feel a little special. Sitting down with Mosier and fucking just like having the best time. Like, I look forward to recording podcasts because I know I'm going to laugh really fucking hard. Right. And that's worth $1 million. Like, the older one gets, people tend to forget this, man. Like, you don't get as many opportunities to laugh. You go to the movies, watch TV and shit. But a lot of us work, and nobody's laughing at work. And if you are, they usually fire you and shit like that. But most people don't get a chance to laugh. So when you're like, I'm going to sit down with this cat, and this cat's going to he's going to fucking bust endorphins all over me, man. Like gay porn worth of endorphins. Face, neck, and chest. He's going to make me fucking feel good just by laughing at shit. Like, that's so insanely valuable. And knowing that you can get one kind of laughs from this guy, different kind of laughs from that guy. Sit down with Ralph, do Hollywood Babylon, different kind of laughs there. You're all over the joint. So it's not just the one thing over and over. in terms of rote sameness of like, yeah, we say these things and the endorphins fly and we feel good. It's like different brands of it as well. But without that, if I'd been successful, if I'd ever been breakout successful, I wouldn't have tried shit. Like, it helped that I was not successful. Not as successful as I could have been. And some people say should have. That's the weirdest thing. When you see people online go, you should be a lot more famous. And I'm like, why? Like, I can't believe I'm this fucking famous. You want me to go higher? Like,
if you're happy, and that's the thing. I mean, obviously, like I said, you've done very well, but you kind of answered my question without me even asking.
That's my curse.
I was going to ask, like, and it sounds kind of topical and bullshit, but I've always been curious, like, what drives you, man? Like, what the fuck gets Kevin Smith out of bed in the morning?
It depends. For last month, I would say it was Tusk. Like, I'd wake up in the morning because I'm certainly not like I love my life. Everything's great and fucking everyone in it is cool. But I'm a human being just like anybody else, man. And like, I'm a human being that's past midlife and maybe way past for all I know and shit. And every morning when I wake up my eyes, I don't care who you are, man. I think if you're fucking fabulously wealthy, I've met billionaires, I've met fucking movie stars. I think everybody goes through this. You wake up and you're like, is there any reason to go to bed today? And not in that lazy ass kind of
relevant?
What's the point? If I don't do anything, or what am I doing? Is it more of the same? I just spinning wheels. So every day, and again, it's not like I'm not in a depressive funk or anything, but every day I have to find something that goes, that's today. If there's not something scheduled, like sometimes I get lucky with it, like you're doing this today, you're going to Louisville or something like that. So you don't get up and go like, what is my life about? I know what it is tonight. It's coming here. But like when you're not doing anything, when you're not untethered, when there's no schedule, that's when you have to kind of find shit. Otherwise, you don't know what drives you. And what drove me for like the last month is like, I want to see if this fucking wall. I want to see how far I can push the wall restriction. But that's kind of like that's it with everybody. So it's like I want to see how far this will go. I want to see if I could do it. I want to see if I could do a podcast. I want to see if anyone will give a shit if we try this. I want, just sometimes you want to be first through the fucking door. Like, I'll never be the best through the door, but first, like, that's cool. Like, some people remember you. Sir. Yeah, we go where the puck's going to be.
I'll be number 2 any day.
I bet the guy who directed and wrote Teeth said the same exact thing.
Right.
Johnny Dentata. Let's see what we can do with it.
I love that.
I bet it's a great freaking movie.
Totally.
They said the same thing.
She's from Louisville, Kentucky.
The girl?
Actress, yeah.
She's good.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So you're looking to make Tusk. You just made this. You came here to Fandom Fest promoting Jason's awesome film. So you think if it gets made, you'll do some more traveling?
Which one?
Tusk.
Well, Tusk, if it gets made the way it's looking like it's going to get made, I don't have to tour with it. Somebody just takes it and puts it in theaters and stuff. Cool. Which is nice, I guess. I mean, for a movie like that, yeah, it'd probably make a lot of sense because it could do. I honestly feel like it could do business for somebody.
Wouldn't it be amazing if it was your best movie?
Yes, but honestly, at this point,
fucking awesome, man.
I've read the script and I know the cast thus far, and I've seen like the fucking. This is really weird. I went to this dude's office, the dude who I'm going to make it with, and they were building a home theater in the office, like a screening room. And so he's like, let me show you where we're going to put the screening room. And he took me to the screening room. We opened the door, and the fucking place, like, the floor's dug out. Looks like this gigantic, like, moat trench around this rocky piece of outcrop. It looks like a mountain almost in the midst of this room. It looks like where you put somebody and chain them to the floor and piss on them and fucking beat them to death. Looks horrible. And he's going, I've been trying to figure out a movie to shoot here for the last 2 months because the rooms look like this, and this looks like such a great set. And it was the exact fucking thing that I'd written in the Walrus thing. Like, all of a sudden I'm looking at this going like, dude, this is it. This is the Enclave. And he knew the script. He was like, oh my God, you're right. I was like, see, there's the rocky thing where the Walrus is. And this moat, we fill it with water. I said, can we fill this with water? How long can you hold off on building this theater out and shit? And he was like, I don't know, I guess we got about 6 to 8 weeks. I was like, all right, because 70% of our script takes place in the one set. This is the fucking set. He's like, it is, isn't it? And you look at the room and it looks like torn apart, like because it was something else. It looks like, they ripped off all the sheetrock and shit. You see bare walls and studs and beams and whatnot. And then they tore out the floor and shit. So it looks like somebody did it at their house. So I'm like, this is even fucking better. Like if I had a set designer put it together, it would be, art directed within an inch of its life. But this just looks like it happened. Like one dude dug a fucking trench, and it's creepy. So right then and there, I'm like, fuck, we got the set. Like, let's see how far we can push it. That's, I think, the motivation, man. Is like, I know I can't be the best, but I can be first and at some shit. And some shit don't matter what you're first at. Like, people don't care. They don't throw a parade for you. But it's like it's something you carry around and whatnot. Like, being the first, which I think we are, the first movie from a podcast means nothing. No, there's no category in the Oscars for it. Nobody will give you an extra $1. It's just one of those things where it's bragging rights. It's just like, when they write about that shit, they have to be like, first one that did it was that asshole we all hate. Or something.
First movie from an eBay auction.
That's true. Yours is the first movie from an eBay auction.
Really?
You ever heard of the movie The Box they did?
Oh, it was a possession.
The possession.
The Divic box.
Yeah.
The Divic box. It was.
I saw that back in 2004. Something. I found the eBay auction, and I told my friends that that'd be a great movie, so we did it, and then they did The Possession in 2012.
Why? And that is that what it was about?
It's based on a true story.
It's the same thing. But you guys did first.
Well, the guy who happened
he actually
contacted me. He goes, I saw your trailer on YouTube. He goes, that was the closest thing to what originally happened to me than what Sam Raimi's company's doing.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
what was the real story?
It was...
he got a box off eBay?
Yeah, it was a haunted Jewish wine cabinet. He got it at a real estate auction, and all these bad things started. And he tried to sell it, and everybody kept on returning the box. And his mom had a stroke. People's hair were falling out. They'd see
making my walls bleed.
Yeah.
I saw that
shit
movie.
like that. But and then he ended up selling it to a college student, and they thought it was a big joke, and things started happening to them. Finally, sold it to a Long Island Paranormal Society, and the guy bad things started happening to him, so he put it away. But
where is it now?
He's got it locked up. He won't tell anybody where.
Really?
Yeah, and it's creepy as hell. I'm like, I told a friend of mine, I said, didn't they creep you out when you read it? He goes, yeah. I said, well, let's make that movie.
That is good.
And then that's how I met Ken. I was a filmmaker, and I gave it to him, and he's like, yeah, it's pretty good. And and then they ended up making the actual studio version in 2012. And Kevin was, the original story came from him, but it was a true story. And so of course, we changed some stuff in it, but I thought it was funny, and so we did. It was off an eBay auction.
That's awesome.
We were talking about that with some of the movies, and knowing you being a filmmaker, we've got an independent film we're going to be doing eventually. But it's a true story, not as crazy as the Tusk, but when you're doing films, do you ever you did Cop Out, and then you did Jersey Girl, very sweet film. Do you ever see yourself doing more sweet films like that?
Right now, I mean, probably my first instinct would be like, no, because fucking, I got burned by Jersey Girl so hard. But Hit Somebody is very much that. Hit Somebody was going to be the hockey movie, and then it was going to be 2 hockey movies, and then it just got too long, and then Muse was like, there was a miniseries. I was like, you're right. So now it's a miniseries, and that is insanely sweet, but not Trekley sweet, like...
Is it like Cutting Edge?
Or Saccharine Sweet. No, God, no. It's like... I'm trying to think what's the closest to. It plays more like a book. There's an omniscient narrator throughout the whole thing, and it just kind of takes you through 30 years of Canadian history and hockey history. Very sweet. Like if we did do it in the movies, it would be PG. I don't even think it'd be PG. Well, PG-13 because the hockey players kind of cuss a little bit. Right. But it's they don't cuss as much as they do now because it's like 1950s, 1970s hockey. But it's very, very sweet. Like it is in as much as Jersey Girl was me trying to do a sweet movie and people being like, this is fucking saccharine, you fat jackass. This does not feel saccharine at all. This feels very real, very organic, very to the subject matter, authentic, earnest, and sweet. Like it's just a love letter to Canadians and to hockey in general and whatnot. So I guess that's looming. That's next year. We'll definitely do that. It's weird. That goes out of my mind so often because I'm like, all right, we got close. Now we're doing Tusk, and then Hit Somebody's predicated on things that are more complicated simply than finding a financier and a network, which we've now found both. But there's one more level that I have to go through in order to get Hit Somebody done. But that too is one of those, like the backstory will probably be way more interesting than the finished product itself. That's always the kind of the danger with the shit that I like to do. Whereas it's not. I can't just make a movie and blah. There's got to be a story about it. You know, there's a story that took us up to the moment the movie happened.
Because you're a writer.
It's a story. Yeah, it's just like it never ends, man. It's like, well, Harvey Weinstein had said when we first sat down with him, they bought the movie Clerks at Miramax, and he had bought it at the restaurant called the Eating Establishment across the street from the Egyptian Theater. And then when we saw him that night, and he said, yeah, great, do this, blah, blah, blah. Like overall term deals. He didn't sit there for the nitty gritty and shit. The whole thing was written on a legal pad. So we go back to New Jersey. He goes back to New York. About a week after Sundance, we go up to Miramax and sit down, meet the boss, sit down, meet Harvey kind of thing. They bring us into his office, and he was like a cartoon octopus. He was just doing so many things at once. His Diet Coke in one hand, his cigarette in the other, he's eating lunch. He was marking a poster with a red marker. He was watching a trailer that somebody had brought in to show him. Just busy as fuck. And then when he finally noticed us, he was just like, welcome to the family, blah, blah, blah. It was one of those chit-chats. And he's like, what can I tell you about film, movies, movie biz? He goes, well, movie doesn't begin and end when the lights go down and the lights come up. He's going, if you're really good at your job, the movie begins long before they get in the theater. And if you're a fucking magician, movie never ends, even when the credits are over. They just live it. They take it with them always. So it was probably just something you fucking say to kids, you know. We were kids. We were like 22 and 23, me and Moj. And I'm sure it was nothing he meant as very deep, and I'm sure it wasn't like, these are the fucking best words of wisdom I have. He was so preoccupied, I doubt he even remembers saying it.
Sounds like pretty solid advice, though, man.
It was to me, though. I mean, it was something he kind of threw out there, but I was just like, huh. And that's what I built my career on, the idea of like, you know, well, I come from Clerks, so the backstory is interesting to begin with. You know, and a lot of people said the backstory is more interesting than the movie itself. The movie's funny, but the backstory is interesting. So I'm already kind of used to that, accustomed to that. But when he dialed me in with, like, you know, essentially that's the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on. So in my world, movie doesn't, he might be Muse, he might have forgotten his key. In my world, the movie doesn't begin when we make the movie or when I write the movie and shit. Movie begins years out as an idea, as a dream that you plant in other people's heads and shit. Like Inception to some degree. Red State, 4 years of that. It took 4 years of talking about it to make it happen. Sometimes you just got to talk some shit into reality, and Red State took a particularly long time to do. Tusk, not taking that long at all, which is kind of nice. But, you know, I have to, but still, long before they see the movie, they're hearing about the movie. They were there for the birth of the movie. So it's me seeding the earth and kind of, you know, creating the story. Like you said, movie begins long before they get into the theater. So you start creating the movie for them. In this world, the movie is, they were sitting around on their fucking podcast, and he said that would make a cool movie, and now he's making it a fucking movie, and it's got a walrus in it. Like, none of this makes sense, but it's cool. And so that narrative gets them interested and keeps them interested, you know, up till the moment they can see it. And we're working on a pretty tight time schedule, hoping to do Sundance in January, so that we could keep that interest level high, because we're not like, a year from now you'll see that walrus picture. Right. So the movies began already for a lot of people. For some cats, you know, the movie will begin when they're like, what? There's a fucking walrus in it?
Sounds fucking
a year
awesome,
from
dude.
now or something like that. But for a lot of people listen to the podcast, some people online, the movie's already begun, you know? And then when they see the movie itself, that's a fucking formality.
Right.
And then the movie keeps going, because it's like, what will this beget? What will, you know, Tusk rot, if you will? What comes from, like, you took a podcast, turned it into a movie. Does it aggregate into something else? Does it mean, like, you'll do it again? Like, people are already going, do this episode of Smodcast, do the crap show.
Right.
It's just like, you know, we have to build a giant Jesus and fight old-timey boxing stuff. So, but I ain't ruling it out. Like, if, like, let's say Tusk fucking did insanely well, and somebody was like, we want to do more movies based on your fucking podcast.
Fuck yeah.
In a heartbeat, dude. I'd be like, take this episode.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even need to do it. I would be counting my money, number one. But number two, I would be like, I can't wait to see your interpretation. I can't wait to see your interpretation and not have to do it myself. What a dream. And think about it. That would mean all that time we were doing the podcast was just building a library of licenses to create, just like Marvel and DC.
Yeah. Like
our stable of characters, the weird people we've talked about over the years, the weird situations we've created. And you could totally turn them into stuff, but you know, I would welcome that. I doubt it'll ever happen.
I feel like that's the cool thing about this podcasting, the organicness of ideas, the way they just kind of flow and come out of things, man.
It could be anything you want it to be. Like I just Fat Man on Batman show, which is literally just me, you know, fucking Fat Man talking about Batman. Yeah. And that came from me going like, I should do a podcast called Fat Man on Batman. I love Batman so much. And after doing that for like 2 months, I was like, fuck it, I will do it. I got to a place one day where I had no guests and shit, and I was just like, fuck, man, what do I do? Because I've established what Fat Man and Batman is. It's me talking to a guest, or at least watching a fucking show and commentating. And then I was like, well, I've always wanted to fucking share that Justice League issue with them. So I sat there and did an episode of Fat Man and Batman where it's just me and this comic book. And I'm reading the comic book and kind of taking them down the rabbit hole of all this shit and why it's relevant to me. And giving it its gravitas as the greatest Batman death ever. And I'm going deep into it. And then halfway down that slope, you're like, yeah, this counts. Like, there's no such thing as a podcast that doesn't work. Like, there's no rules, so you can do whatever the fuck you want. Some podcasts can be you reading a comic book. Some podcasts you talking to your friends. Some podcasts you by your fucking self. So it's a medium you can bend to your will and whimsy, and it loves to bend, just like Jason Mewes. It loves to bend. It will do whatever you want it to do, man.
Legs over the head.
And that's why people like it. That's why, you know, everyone should try it. I always urge people that don't even fucking like, I don't like the sound of my own voice, just do it. Sit down with a friend and record it, man. Like, even if you don't put it public, but put it public, because then you'll do it again and again. But just to have, man, like, I got conversations saved that, you know, if I'm an old man one day, if I ever make it that far, I can just
go back and listen to that shit.
Take me right back to that fucking moment in time. That's what music does. We listen to music. It's a fucking time machine. You record a conversation with your friends or your fucking my mother. Like, one day my mom's going to pass. I got a couple episodes of Smodcast. She's right there, you know, and chit-chatting. And I'm getting to the nitty-gritty like, Mom, what is it like to blow Dad? Like, not just like, just really asking her the shit that I won't have a chance to. Right, and she gone. So, I don't know, shit like that is definitely, that's worth having. It's worth holding on to a conversation you have with your friends.
Top right there.
I guess that's the one to go out on.
Yeah, let's end on that one.
Look, you can't talk about Mom sucking Dad's dick in Louisville, man. That's where they draw the line. They're like, no way, Slugger, not here.
Well, I was going to ask, where are you guys going next?
We go to Austin tomorrow.
Austin, Texas.
And then right after Austin, we head home. I got a Hollywood Babylon with Ralph on Friday night. But Austin at the Paramount, which I played that theater a few times. I think it was the first time he's actually played it.
That's so cool.
And it looks like it's going to sell out, so they're happy, he's happy.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Nerdosphere, fucking go out, see Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie because it's fucking awesome and it's funny and
more importantly, go out and record a podcast.
And go out and record a podcast.
Yeah.
And Fandom Fest appreciates you coming out.
Fandom Fest, I mean, if I may plug for a moment.
Please.
I said it on stage. That's such an impressive guest list. Like, that is equal to, if not better than New York Comic Con last year. You bring in all those people, like, that's what makes you a legendary con. Like, I know you said you did multiples of 5 times this year. Based on the legend carrying alone for next year. Like, you've got to do 10. You know it's going to go up. Because you've now established, like, we got a dick. Look how big this dick is. It's fucking thick and it's luscious. Ain't no dick around here as big as this. It's smart. It was absolutely fucking smart to do, man. Sometimes it's just like, bring in the fucking big guns and like overwhelm your audience with like, look at how fucking spectacular this is. Only at Fandom Fest. And they know they don't have to fly for it. They know they can fucking... I heard people in the audience say, like, everything's 15 minutes away. They know they can get right here, man.
Yeah, that's right.
And apparently, you were telling me they draw, like, what is it? FedEx is here or no? UPS? Because it's
you can drive more places here.
2 hours away from everything.
This place is a fucking geographical oddity.
It's so strange, really?
Yeah, it's like...
It's weird because here we are. You have Indianapolis. See, we don't have a pro team,
right?
So you got Cincinnati Reds, Cincinnati Bengals, Indianapolis Colts, and Pacers. Nashville is in the news every day because of country music.
Right.
It's 2 hours south, so we're in the Bermuda. We're literally straight down 65. We're in the
You're
Bermuda.
the middle child.
All we've
dude.
got is Derby.
You're fucking Peter Brady.
Well, that's all we've got is Derby.
It's Derby.
Especially if we're thinking celebrities.
Now we got Derby and Fandom Fest.
Yeah, now we've got Fandom Fest.
And we love the Kentucky Derby, but we're more than a one-horse town.
Right.
We have some of the most.
How long is that? Is that once a year, one day, or is it a week long? 2 weeks.
Yeah. It starts with Thunder over Louisville, which draws 500,000 people. to downtown Louisville. We go between. What other show is it, you guys? There's one other fireworks display in the world. It's always between us and them, first place and second place. The same company.
For attendance?
The same company.
What is it? I'm trying to think what you're talking about.
The Garibaldi family does the...
New York City when they light off the fucking
Yeah.
fireworks?
That might be it.
It's like we go back and forth. And they're the same family, so they got to try to outdo themselves. Starts there, and then literally this town shuts down, where we have things called chow wagons, where the entire city has food and everybody. And you will get people that will come in from everywhere. You cannot get a hotel room. People
Bedlam
here,
in the streets, run on the roads,
run the roads, everything.
Yeah,
people will
insane.
actually hot air balloon race. People will actually rent their homes out for $5,000-6,000 a week.
I would imagine, right?
You know, just and other people take vacations, and you know, we have a lot of celebrities from our show that always say, "Hey, can I come back for Derby?" Sure. You know, we don't.
Do they actually come back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they love coming back.
And what is Derby? Is Derby like impossible to get tickets for? It's like Sundance.
It can be, as you know, people.
Everybody
like me.
goes though. I mean, you got the infield where everybody.
You got the infield,
goes.
but then you know if you want to go where
Millionaires Row,
it's really
yeah.
nice,
Jockey
Millionaires
Club.
Row, and right below there in box seats.
Right.
You got to know people.
Do people have to dress up? You got to dress
Oh
up.
yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is this is dressing up. Girls love to wear the hats. This is a hat
Do
affair.
you have to get dressed up?
Well, not
Like if
necessarily.
could I go like this or like you can't?
Oh
come
fuck
in?
yeah, you can go.
Oh really?
All right.
Oh yeah, you can go. Yeah, the girls like to really dress up.
Yeah.
They wear the little
They
hats.
wear the
you know.
hats.
Yeah.
The hats.
And the
is
mint
where-
julep is the
Pastel
drink.
colors.
The
That's
mint
the drink.
julep is the drink.
Well, it's kind of like looking back at when people used to go out to Coney Island or something, and they would that was a
Dress
big thing.
up.
Pearls, the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
They go
Dude,
and
to
dress
fly.
up. They
When they flew in the
Right,
early days
right.
of flying, motherfuckers put on suits and
Right.
dresses
They have
and
the
shit.
bow
Like,
ties, the whole
why?
9 yards, and that's kind of what this is. They're there to be seen, and they what the latest fashion is, what the latest hat, and it's that one big day. So or the Oaks is right before that. So, but now they've made it a whole week long.
They
thing.
keep expanding it.
Right. So so
Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So several. Yeah.
With
for
you guys coming.
starting on Wednesday.
You guys
my
expanding.
plan was to go originally from like Sunday to Sunday because
That's awesome.
I want to do more than one film festival, and we purposely put ours right after Comic-Con or right around Comic-Con
Smart.
because when you start to market it and people are like, oh, Comic-Con Louisville, no, it's a different Comic-Con, but people don't know.
Right.
So we're just trying to let them know that here we are. We're tired of. I mean, I like Chicago. Chicago Comic Con, cool place. Dragon Con's a cool place.
How far is that from here?
Chicago's only a 5 hour
hours.
drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're talking a
C2E2.
45-minute flight.
Yeah.
C2E2 is a blast, but why the hell would I want to pay $750 before I walk in the door? You can pay $150 here before you walk in. I mean, it's like that's all you're paying.
Right.
Because I grew up a poor boy, so I'm not one of those people. Catholic. We grew up Catholic. Dad was a hard worker. He was actually doing your sound tonight with Alan.
All right.
That was my dad. Yeah.
Family affair, man.
Yeah. Has to be. All the friends and family I could do.
Yeah,
I could
no,
not do it
I
without these
respect
people,
that. That's
man.
all I do.
So, but yeah, no, we're really, really happy you guys came in for this because you guys, speaking of communication, tweeting made a difference. I mean, Jason on the air, you guys talking about it. It's harder to get celebrities to pump something. They're more interested in, hey, we want to sign autographs and make money.
Yeah, right.
It's like, come out and promote your film.
Yeah.
Push the thing you want. Or get a studio to say, hey, guys, we got 25, 30,000 people midsummer in an area that you want to reach.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because you can make a lot
you're
of money.
sending, and you're also sending people. You're grabbing from, it looks like 3 states at least.
Oh, hell yeah. Easy.
And then sending, as much as like making money is a nice thing for a lot of people, more importantly, they're sending how many people? 20, 30,000? Back out into this neck of the woods going like, this show, this movie, this fucking thing. And then those people are going like, I got to buy this show, watch this movie.
And if you're into marketing, like I am, I keep looking at it like, okay, wait a minute. It's always New York, or it's always here, or it's always there. It's like, whoa, there's a lot of money and a lot of minds who want to be affected. You saw it tonight. I mean, we were thinking, because we had to move it, because of the move situation, it would have been a lot bigger because it's on Saturday. We put you at prime time.
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to have a lot smaller audience, but it didn't. I mean, we had very few, refunds.
Yeah, they were nice guys.
They were,
Nice
it was better than I thought. I was happy. They were happy. I think you guys did. You enjoyed it.
Yeah, we were very happy. I liked it very much.
It was cool.
I'm telling you, I would not be surprised. You could probably go for a week long easily. Like, think about it. What are you competing against? Nothing.
Not a damn thing.
Yeah, I
Next
mean,
year,
it's
baby.
and when you force, like, there's something beautiful about like fucking 3 days, but if you had a week,
Fuck yeah.
you know what's gonna happen? A bunch of cats who are like, I'm gonna skip Friday and Saturday. I'm gonna go fucking Monday and Tuesday. You're gonna have steady crowds,
You're
and
right.
then the weekend it's a massive fucking
You're right.
spike.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's.
I think it's smart. The cats at Comic Con, like, you know, they've got their whole thing down to fucking 4 days and shit. There was a dude who came to deliver room service, and he was just like, "Do you know anybody over there?" And I was like, "I mean, I know people, but not like enough to influence anything." Why? He goes, "Tell them to break this into 3 weeks." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Why is it always fucking one weekend?" He's going like, "They should break it into 3 weeks. It would cut the traffic down, and they'd make more money. You do a film, you do a game, you do a comics convention." I was like, "Oh, so like South by Southwest?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, I'll pass the word along to whoever I see."
That's funny. You mentioned that. That's. I want to make mine South by Southwest. That's exactly what I'm going.
And
for.
you could. I mean, think about
Technology,
it, man. There's
gaming,
nothing else.
movies.
They're far enough away, and there's nothing else here where you can be it and be the draw.
Well, see, what's Comic Con is an industry show. Everybody knows it's an industry show. It's all about the media, and we have a lot of media, but we had one of the largest literary tracks for authors in the country last year.
What is that?
Here, we just had we had so many authors. We had 120 authors come in, 8 New York Times bestsellers. You know, because we were promoting literacy, reading, right? You know,
Here in the state?
yeah, at Fandom Fest.
At
this year.
Fandom Fest, okay.
Yeah. And we have them back again. We have a lot of authors back again because you can't have a great movie without writing. So
No, of course.
here you go. Here are your writers. So we're trying to all do that. You know, we're trying to bring in technology. Film. We love media. We love everything geek. That's what Nerdosphere is about. We're trying to get on that podcast of saying, hey, we've got something big. Come out and see us. But we want to. My vision was always a map of Middle Earth. It's like a theme park map of Middle Earth. Here's the Black Forest, which is the horror division. Here's the anime division. Here's
3 rings to
yeah. And our commercial was one ring to see it all.
Yeah, one
Which is,
ticket to see it all.
One
Yeah.
ticket to see it all. One ring to see it all. Because I want everything to be inclusive instead of exclusive. It's kind of like, okay, guys, we get you like anime, but anime crosses over into horror because there's people like horror, like anime, et cetera, et cetera. But all of it coming together is a whole new market.
It's smart.
So we're trying to figure that out.
You did the absolute right thing this year and fucking bringing in all the people that you brought in because it popped. Like the show is now on the map beyond this neck of the woods.
Yeah.
That's
Like
what
you
we
are
heard.
on the map. You were on the map for here for sure, as you knew because you've
Yeah.
been doing it for years and years. But it traveled beyond. You had people in fucking San Diego
Yeah.
talking about fucking Fandom
They were
Fest.
because Jason Momoa who's coming out to see us Xbox Live, and Gillian Anderson was on Jay Leno and mentioned this.
That's huge. It was smart.
It's kind of
dude.
scary.
That's good though. don't be afraid of
Wait a
that.
minute, wait a
That's everything you ever wanted.
What's that brown spot? Shit.
But it's cool, man. It's nice. I feel kind of like I'm on the ground floor as you're about to explode.
We hope you come back.
In a heartbeat.
We'd
We'll
love
come
to
back.
have you. know,
We record
just be
so
open.
many podcasts that
Yeah, absolutely.
even if he can't do it, there's always someone else. But
We'd
he
love to
loves
have
to
you.
travel. But yeah, thank you. We'll come back in a heartbeat. But it is. You could tell, man. The show you've put your foot down in some earth, and you've got real traction. Now continue to build on that. Like
We're gonna try.
it's premature to say you've arrived, but fucking people know you're here.
I'm pulling up the street.
Yeah, but also it's just like
You're in the valet lane.
You're doing kind of what Tim League did back in the day in Austin, where he's just
yeah.
like, I'm doing this. Now I'm doing this.
Yep.
Now I'm doing this, and he became known as the guy who did the cool shit. That's
what we wanna
what
do.
you got
We
going on
wanna
right
know-
now.
We want to do the cool shit.
And it's nice. I mean, right now you're drawing from the area, but you're drawing from outside now because word gets
Oh.
out. I'm telling you, this is the last year that you get to enjoy this size. I bet you next year you have to make some harsh
Insanity.
decisions about
I
where to
do.
go and how much space you're going to need because it gets bigger. It's going to get bigger.
Well, next year we're going to take 450,000 square feet,
What is it this year?
260.
Oh my God! So you are ready. Like you're not telling me anything new.
He's playing for the next 5 years.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
That's smart, man.
Just
That's
get
what
the
you got to do.
volunteers.
But I mean, the smartest thing you could have done is what you did, which is you put so many fucking names on there that people just go like, this is legit. Dude, fucking, I'm here. If they didn't know about you 10 minutes ago, they know who you are now.
Devin, we appreciate you, man, and Jason for coming out to see us, and everybody out there, go see Jay and Silent Bob's
Super
Groovy
Groovy movie. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
Thank you, everybody. Thank